My name is Michael, and I never imagined a simple sleepover could knock me off balance. It all started on a Friday evening. Josh's parents were away at a conference, and he invited me to spend the night. I met him at the door, carrying a backpack full of textbooks and my gaming controller. Outside, the autumn breeze whispered through the maples, and the streetlights cast soft halos of yellow across the clean sidewalks. I took a deep breath and rang the bell. The door swung open immediately. Standing before me was Linda, Josh's mom, a woman in her early 40s, slender and impeccably groomed, wrapped in a lightweight ivory robe. Her hair was loosely piled atop her head, a few strands falling gracefully around her shoulders. She smiled at me with an unexpected warmth and gave me a brief, almost mischievous wink. My cheeks flamed, and I stifled an awkward laugh. "Hey, Michael." She greeted me in a calm, measured voice, stepping aside to let me in. Josh flashed a grin behind her and disappeared down the hallway with a teasing, "Don't be late." I stepped inside, trying not to stare as Linda's kind eyes held mine, already pulling me into something I couldn't quite name. The kitchen was bathed in gentle light, a vase of lilacs on the table, the smell of freshly baked cupcakes drifting through the air. I dropped my backpack by the wall and followed Josh upstairs, only to be halted by a soft click. Linda appeared at the door, handing me a key to the locked linen closet. When our fingers brushed, an electric spark raced up my arm. The guest room was minimalist, a single bed, a nightlight, and an open window letting in the crisp night air. I sat on the edge of the bed, smoothing the blanket across my lap. Josh waved goodbye and left, leaving me in the half-light. Hours later, just as sleep began to wash over me, I jolted awake to a whisper in the dark. "Michael, you're still awake?" Opening my eyes, I saw Linda at the doorway, holding a tray with a glass of punch and a plate hidden beneath shiny foil. She entered silently, as if she were a shadow. Her robe was opened just enough to hint at the graceful curve of her body beneath. The nightlight's glow outlined her silhouette, and I watched the amber liquid in the glass glimmer. The scent of punch blended with vanilla and honey drifting from the uncovered slice of cake. "I thought tonight deserved a little magic," she whispered, placing the tray on the nightstand. Her voice was soft, but carried an unspoken promise. My heart hammered so loudly I worried a Josh might hear from the next room. "Do you trust me?" she asked, stepping closer. I nodded, every muscle tensed, yet unable to move. Linda leaned in, offering me the first bite of cake. The creamy sweetness hit my tongue, an intoxicating blend of warmth and a faint bitterness. I closed my eyes as the flavor blossomed. She sat beside me, letting her hand rest lightly on my knee, a touch that sent shivers down my spine. Yeah. "Sometimes you have to take a risk to discover who you really are," she said, her tone deep and alluring. Suddenly, footsteps sounded on the stairs. Linda stiffened and sprang back into the caring hostess facade. In one fluid motion, she wrapped her robe tighter, replaced the foil, and carried the tray away. "It's late," she said gently. "You must be tired." I managed a hoarse, "Thanks, Mrs. Carlson." She smiled and quietly closed the door behind her. I was left in the hush of the room, spoon in hand and heart pounding. The walls felt like the vaulted ceiling of a secret shrine, both sacred and forbidden. I gazed out the window at the silver clouds drifting over the suburban roofs. In that moment, I realized I was standing on the threshold of adult life, a world where boundaries blur and nothing is off limits. What happened next changed everything. You won't want to miss how it unfolds. Suddenly, footsteps sounded on the stairs. Linda stiffened and sprang back into the caring hostess facade. In one fluid motion, she wrapped her robe tighter, replaced the foil, and carried the tray away. "It's late," she said gently. "You must be tired."
Morning hit me with sharp light piercing the blinds of the guest room. I blinked away the remnants of sleep, but my mind still buzzed with last night's images. Linda's gentle touch, the scent of vanilla cream, and the spice of the sweet punch. I sat up on the bed and realized that the stage was set for me once again, directed by none other than Linda herself. Downstairs, the aroma of fresh coffee and toast greeted me. I quickly dressed and descended to the kitchen where Linda stood, pouring rich coffee into mugs. Her calm yet concerned smile met me at the door. Josh sat scrolling through his phone, not looking up as he asked, "Sleep okay?" I nodded and took a seat, heart pounding so loud I was afraid it would give me away. Breakfast passed in near silence. I devoured an omelet and toast, trying to swallow not just food, but the prickling guilt in my gut. Linda watched quietly, her eyes revealing neither rebuke nor judgment, only soft concern as if she understood my turmoil better than I did. When I finished my coffee, she spoke. "Are you free after school today?" "I am," I replied. "Do you need help with something?" She paused and smiled. "I'd like your opinion on the tableware for my mom's birthday dinner. Will you come with me?" It sounded innocent, shopping for plates and cups, but my mind raced with the possibility of hidden meanings behind her request. I agreed, plotting to understand her motives tonight. At school, I could barely focus. Classrooms blurred as I thought of our upcoming shopping trip. A whispered exchange between Josh's sister and a friend caught my eye. They exchanged knowing glances I chose to ignore. When the final bell rang, I bolted from school in a rush to meet Linda at the gates. Outside the school, she was waiting, dressed simply in a sundress and ballet flats, her hair loose around her shoulders. A gentle blush warmed her cheeks. I led her to the car parked nearby. Inside, the clean leather seats held a faint scent of her perfume. Linda slid in and looked at me. "Thanks for helping," she said softly. "Always," I replied, heart racing. The drive to the mall was 15 minutes of warm jazz and comfortable silence, punctuated by my own hammering pulse. Linda reached over and rested her hand on my knee as if checking on me. The touch sparked the same electric thrill, maternal yet intimate. At the mall, we browsed through home goods and settled at a porcelain store. She examined delicate teacups, and I watched her profile, her graceful neck, the gentle arc of her shoulders. She caught my gaze and arched an eyebrow, wordlessly inviting me to speak. I reached for a cup adorned with a floral pattern. "This one is perfect," I said, offering it to her. "You have excellent taste," she replied, and her voice held a warmth deeper than simple gratitude. We purchased several pieces and headed home as the sun dipped toward the horizon. In the car, Linda shared stories of her youth, her dreams of becoming an artist before life took other turns. I listened, captivated, finally seeing her not just as Josh's mom, but as a woman with her own hopes and fears. By sunset, we were back at the Carlsons. Linda walked me to the door. "Thank you for your help, Michael," she said, her smile genuine. "Good night, Mrs. Carlson," I managed, voice steady. She closed the door, and I stood on the porch watching the living room windows glow with golden light. Anticipation fluttered in my chest. Tomorrow would bring us even closer, with stakes higher than ever. This is the climax. Everything you've been waiting for happens right here. Stay tuned to see how the hero takes charge. I never imagined an ordinary school day could spiral into a nightmare. It seemed to follow its usual trajectory: classes, homework, a quick phone call with my mom reminding me not to stay out too late. Yet, on a strange impulse, I checked my watch. It was already 6 p.m., and Josh hadn't returned from practice. He usually called right after, but his line went straight to voicemail. A knot tightened in my chest, something more unsettling than yesterday's porcelain shopping trip. I grabbed my bike and raced through familiar streets toward the Carlsons' house. Along the way, every overhanging hedge seemed to whisper my name, warning me of the madness ahead. When I parked at the porch, my throat constricted. Every light in the house was off, but through the slightly open second-story window came muffled voices. My heart hammered as I crept to the window and peered inside. In the dimly lit living room, I saw Linda leaning over the coffee table. Josh stood beside her, his shoulders slumped, clutching his baseball tightly, as though he'd discovered it at an inconvenient moment. Linda spoke in a low, almost conspiratorial whisper, and he listened, head bowed. Their shadows merged and danced ominously on the wall, moving to the rhythm of her quiet words. A flash of emotion, jealousy, fear, washed through me. What are they plotting? But I couldn't look away. Suddenly, Josh lifted his gaze, and I saw emptiness in his eyes, void of their usual mischief. He released the ball, which fell and thudded softly on the hardwood. I gasped. Linda rose and moved toward the window. Startled, I stepped back, but she spotted me, her lips curving in a serene, almost eerie smile. Fingertips brushed the cool glass before she returned to Josh, laying a gentle hand on his shoulder. My pulse thundered as I spun to leave. The back door clicked open, my mom calling me home. Torn between running away and doing the right thing, I hesitated. Behind me, I heard the muted clatter of the baseball, falling again, echoing my own rising panic. I vaulted onto my bike and fled, not daring to look back. At home, my mother shot me a knowing question. Where had I been? I remained silent, parking the bike in the foyer. In my ears, Linda's quiet whisper lingered. You're not alone in these feelings. The world felt split in two. One half the reality I knew, the other a dangerous game between a friend's mother and the friend who may not have been my friend at all. I lay in bed, sleep elusive. Their silhouettes haunted my mind, and I realized tomorrow I'd have to make a choice, one that would determine whether I could ever reclaim the life I once had. What happened next changed everything. You won't want to miss what unfolds when Michael finally decides to act. The next morning I woke with a heaviness in my chest. I'd spent the night haunted by their whispers, the thud of the baseball, and the emptiness in Josh's eyes. I wanted to go back and demand an explanation, but my heart pounded with fear. What if I was wrong? I got ready and trudged to school. Every passing bus and pedestrian reminded me of the Carlsons' house. I pulled out my phone and dialed Linda's number, busy tone. Tried again, busy. Frustration and anxiety twisted in my gut. In the hallway, I caught sight of Josh by his locker. He leaned against it, as if unsure whether to talk to me. Finally, he looked up and nodded. You going to baseball practice today? I nodded back, though I knew that after what I'd seen, neither practice nor game held the same meaning for me. After the last bell, I headed straight to the field. The team was already warming up, and Josh was there, adjusting his glove. He saw me and waved. Come on, man, let's warm up. I stepped onto the grass, the morning sun catching his face. No emptiness, just the familiar thrill of competition. But inside, my need for answers burned brighter than any home run. Josh, I called when he finished a throw. He jogged over, wiping sweat from his forehead. I took a deep breath, feeling my nerves harden. What's up, bro? He asked, frowning. Last night, I saw you and your mom. What were you talking about? I blurted out. Josh jumped at the question. What are you talking about? He replied in alarm. I told him everything, the whispering voices in the living room, how close they'd been, the falling ball, and that hollow look in his eyes. With each word, I felt a piece of that burden lift. The truth needed to be spoken. Josh stepped back, his eyes wide. He wiped his glove on his pants and exhaled slowly. Michael, I didn't know you saw. It's not what you think. I felt anger give way to doubt. Then tell me what it was about. My voice shook. He cast his gaze down, gripping the ball. My mom was just trying to help me handle the pressure. I was struggling, but that's no excuse. I pressed on. So you were just talking? I couldn't hide my hope. Josh nodded. Yeah, just talking. About my fears. I was in a bad place and she wanted to support me. I felt the tension drain away. Okay, sorry for bursting in, I said. Josh patted me on the shoulder. It's cool. I'm glad you asked. We exchanged a nod and turned back to our teammates. The sun hung low in the sky, and the field seemed to exhale relief. I saw Linda's figure in the window of the Carlson house, watching us, serene and composed. In my chest stirred a bittersweet mix of relief and melancholy. Childhood innocence once lost would never be the same. This is the climax. Everything you've been waiting for happens right here. Stay tuned to see how the hero puts everyone in their place. The morning was surprisingly still. A misty dawn drifted along the suburban street, and the autumn leaves glowed like embers in the soft light. I stepped onto the cool floor of the Carlson guest room and inhaled deeply. Today was the day everything would be set right. Descending the staircase, I no longer felt fear. Resolute determination burned within me. No more secrets, only truth. In the kitchen, Linda had prepared an elaborate breakfast: aromatic pastries, fresh berries, and egg muffins. She looked at me with a warm smile, but I held her gaze steadily. Good morning, Michael, she said. You look well today. Good morning, Mrs. Carlson, I replied evenly and took my seat at the table. Josh emerged from the living room, surprised to see me, and sat across from me. A tense silence hung in the air, as if before a battle. I clenched my fists in my pockets. Josh, I began, we need to talk, alone. He nodded, and I led him upstairs to his room, leaving Linda below. The hallway felt longer than ever, and the shadows on the wall looked like ghosts of past doubts. Closing the door, I faced my friend. Listen, I believe you, I said, but I deserve the truth. What's really going on between you and your mom? Josh sat on the edge of his bed, rubbing his temples. Michael, he sighed, I appreciate you stepping in, but you have to understand, she's the only one who really gets me. I was under immense stress: school, practice, parental expectations. Mom talked to me, to support me, but I realize now it went too far. I sat beside him, feeling my shoulders relax. So she just needed to be there for you? I asked softly. He nodded. Yes, she had nowhere else to turn, and I trusted her more than anyone, but I don't want you to think I'm betraying our friendship. I exhaled in relief. I knew you were my friend, Josh, but it was hard seeing you two and not understanding what was happening. We shook hands and smiled genuinely for the first time in ages. Below, Linda's voice called out, Boys, breakfast is ready. We went down, and I saw her at the stove, calm and nurturing. I approached and casually brushed my hand against hers. Thank you, Mrs. Carlson. She smiled, and in her eyes was the understanding. The game was over, and we now had a blank slate ahead of us. I sat at the same table as before, but everything felt different now. The sheer curtains by the window fluttered in a gentle breeze, and sunlight painted whimsical patterns on the floor. Before me stood Linda. Her eyes were filled with calm, her shoulders squared as if she'd shed her own fears. Behind her, in the doorway, appeared Josh, no longer wearing that look of suspicion, but rather a light, welcoming smile. Michael, Linda said softly, thank you for staying and listening to us yesterday. It wasn't easy for any of us. I took a deep breath and sipped the remaining cocoa on the table. Its taste carried all the echoes of this emotional marathon, from the first hints of forbidden desire to the morning relief of truth. I've learned a lot, I began, but most importantly, you both mean a great deal to me. I don't want to lose my friend, or the family you've become to me. Linda nodded, smiling more warmly than ever. You've become like a son to us, Michael. We never wanted to hurt you. Josh stepped forward and placed his hand on my shoulder. Friendship is family by choice. I'm glad you're here. I felt the last vestiges of tension melt away as a warm trust settled into my chest. The three of us looked at one another, each recognizing the step we'd taken toward one another. I have an idea, I said. Let's celebrate this new chapter with a small dinner. Just the three of us, with no shadows from the past. Linda and Josh laughed, and in that laughter, a gentle irony of fate wove itself, how our black tragicomedy had transformed into genuine understanding. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, we set the table together, rustic pie, tea, and plenty of laughter. I caught Linda catching my eye, her gaze shining not with seduction, but with gratitude. In that moment, I realized true strength lies in respecting the boundaries we set ourselves. The three of us sat down to dine, and for the first time, I truly felt I had found a home, where the winter had finally melted and spring was just beginning,